Thanks for having us today. We appreciate this, and we especially appreciate being invited here by our partner of 4 years now, CloudHealth by VMware. We have a very special relationship with CloudHealth, and we couldn't do our jobs without them. So my name is John McGivern. I'm Senior Director of Cloud Optimization Services for Trace3. And Parker and I started up this group about 4 years ago, and we're going to kind of walk you through why we started up. But the title kind of hits the nail on the head, which is we saw so many surprises on customer invoices. And me being 31 years as an infrastructure executive, and having recently moved to the cloud, I fully understood this. So with that, we're going to hopefully entertain you a little bit today, give you some helpful hints. And Parker, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for watching, everyone. My name is Parker Stevens, and I've been at the company for almost 7 years. My roots are in IT, help desk stuff, but I quickly wanted to get into more engineering and the data center, and I found myself up in the clouds with John. We're currently managing about 60 companies as a reseller of the cloud across AWS, Azure, GCP, 2 million in monthly cloud revenue, and it's been a blast. Our business is great, but we're here to teach kind of what we do, how you can do it yourself, or if you want our help, we're here for you as well. So I'll kick it back to John.
Okay, let's get moving. Parker, next slide. So just so you understand, Parker and I actually came into the Trace3 portfolio as one of the managed services via an acquisition. We were with Groupware Technology out of the Bay Area for me 4 years, Parker 7 years. At the end of last year, we were purchased by Trace3, a large integrator and value-added reseller. And as you can see, this is the Trace3 portfolio. We're thrilled to be a part of it. It allows us to integrate with other groups and do even more innovative things. So with that being said, let's talk about what we do. The bottom line is that we've seen this again and again and again. Basically, everyone is overspending in the cloud. In some ways, you should be overspending in the cloud. The idea with the cloud is to innovate, is to do things that you wouldn't be able to do in on-prem because you'd have to make a capital request and install it and get floor space and the whole bit. The cloud is great. The nature of it is that you should be overspending some, but it's a matter of how much you're overspending. And that's why we started up this service 4 years ago, to help our customers gain control of this and feel comfortable with their bills. So if we want to, next slide. If you're going to get comfortable with your bill, visibility is key. You need something to show you how to stay up to date and trust your bill. And in that regards, I call it the 40 line versus 4 million line problem. Okay. For those of you who have ever seen a cloud invoice, and this is true across all the major clouds, you kind of get out of the box a 40 line summarized of every service that you use. And if it's not 40, it's 30 or it's 60, whatever. But it's a summarization. And it's not very helpful to saying, well, how did I actually spend my money and should I sign this invoice? Well, the alternative is you get a file that might be even down to the second on every single service, and it's about 4 million lines or more. So you either get the 40 lines or the 4 million lines, and what you're really looking for is useful data in between. And so you need that visibility, and it is available in some of the tools that are come from the cloud providers themselves. But then when you go to multi-cloud, not only do you have the 40 line versus 4 million line problem, but you got it multiplied by the number of clouds you're in, and you may not have one tool to do it. So what do? We leverage CloudHealth as the visibility. And over the years, CloudHealth has gotten better and better. CloudHealth is the industry-leading tool for cost management. And they give you a single pane of glass across Google, Azure, and AWS. And if you have that visibility, then you can plan, you can manage, and you can save money in the cloud. So it really can be a success story if you have the visibility. So even with the visibility, you get Macaulay'd. And our motto in the group is never let one of our customers get Macaulay'd. There is very few people who haven't been in the cloud who haven't had this happen to them. Over the years, we've seen mistakes. We've seen over provisioned things where someone just missed the boat. We've seen security breaches where disgruntled employees ran up the spend. And you can have the visibility, but if you don't manage it, this happens. And of course, the answer to this is your CFO calls you up and says, did this happen? And the bottom line is that you have to be watching. If you don't want to get Macaulay'd, you have to be watching. And your CFO is probably going to say to you, hey, we have a tool, right? I thought we had alerting for this. And this is the slide we always put up. And we've seen this situation with customers, right? You take a $31,000 a month run rate and you increase it by $25 a day, just $25 a day. And that run rate over the course of a month goes up dramatically. Well, I thought I had alerting. Well, what are you going to do? Alert yourself and spam yourself every day on a $25 increase? It is amazing how this adds up. And so you say, well, if I can't alert on it, what do I need to do? What's the answer? And we joke about not having the flux capacitor or a DeLorean to go back in time and fix it. Well, the bottom line, what you're trying to do is avoid it in the first place. So to avoid it in the first place, it really requires a weekly view of the data so that by the time the invoice comes, you're only days away from some large anomaly happening. So that's all I have to do, right? Look at it weekly. Well, who has the time for that? Unless you have people that's their job. Most of us have day jobs, and we see this again and again with our customers. And with the day jobs, hey, I don't have time for this. So the invoice comes and you get surprised. Well, the concept we want to introduce to you, and we do this for all our customers, but you can do it yourself, is the fact that you need to come up with dashboards. And no matter what tool you're using, we happen to use CloudHealth, you come up with dashboards. And where we really dive in on the dashboards, first of all, it takes us 5 minutes to just scan down the dashboard and find the key data. But we look at where our monthly trend is going. But most importantly, we look at where our daily trend is going. If you go to your daily trend, you'll never get surprised. And so the key to never getting surprised is to be taking that time, and it can be 5 to 10 minutes a week if you have the right dashboarding or reporting set up, such that you don't get surprised and it allows you to deal with something before it becomes a crisis. So we're awesome, right? We 5 minutes a week, we solved everything. Well, my partner Parker here is going to walk you through the other side of the equation and how we use CloudHealth to handle that.
Yep. So everyone gets into the cloud thinking that it's cheaper, it's innovative, it's flashy, it's going to make us look modern. But we realize that none of that really matters, and it's not cheaper. It is costly, like John said. And so we get into the cloud, we've got this expensive bill. We say, well, we need to do something about it. And management says, figure it out. You go out and you build, this platform through some system, you patch it together, or you buy CloudHealth, or you've got this great tool, but then you don't use it because no one owns it. And it's just another tool, like John said earlier. You already have a day job. You already have responsibilities. You came from a world where you were working in a data center and those servers were already purchased and you had the hardware to work with. Now you've got the cloud that's agile, it's always moving, you can spin up new things all the time, but now you have to worry about the cost of it constantly. And that cost is now pushed to the edge of the organization. Your engineers are now making financial decisions. The finance team is not requiring a approval for everything, because if they did, it would cut off the number one advantage of the cloud, which is speed of innovation. So we believe that the cloud shouldn't cost you money. It should make you money by being innovative. So we often get asked, how often then am I supposed to look at cutting down my bill or meet with my team and make some reductions? Is it a monthly, a quarterly, a semi-annually thing? And this is the same question that a lot of us were asking last year during COVID with our hair. Should we get a haircut now? Can I get a haircut now? Maybe in a year? Well, I tell you what, I didn't get a haircut. I'm still growing it. Who cares? But these intervals, when it comes to cost optimization, leave too much money on the table. Even quarterly or a monthly cadence often results in sticker shock when that large invoice comes because you had a few engineers who forgot some resources that were costly. So I have a couple of concepts I want to go over, and these are things that you can do in AWS, Azure, GCP. You can do it right now. It's pretty simple. The first one is zombie resources. We like to call these zombies because they're things that you forgot about. They're things that are roaming around in your environment. They're not really attached to anything. You can think about it like, in your data center, a cable or a hard drive laying on the floor. They're just there, but that's a tripping hazard, and it was tangible, so you cleaned it up promptly. But in the cloud, you don't see anything anymore. It's all clicks and buttons. And so these zombie resources are up there, forgotten about, and costing you money. A couple of examples of these in AWS are unattached or available EBS volumes. These are things that you needed at one point, but you spun down the instance and left the EBS volume. Very common. Elastic IP addresses or just regular IP addresses in Azure, GCP. These cost money if you're not utilizing them, if they're disassociated. And then the most common is EBS snapshots, or just a snapshot of whatever it is that you built. You might need it for a time. There might be a hard requirement of having it around for a couple of months, but if you don't have a lifecycle policy, these add up very, very quickly. So don't leave debris around in the cloud. Clean up the clouds. The next concept, you've probably heard of it before, is right-sizing. And I say that we've heard about it a million times because everyone talks about it, but the realization that we've had is that we've brought an on-prem mentality into the cloud. Whether you're a startup who's born in the cloud or not, you've probably hired people who have worked in on-prem infrastructure. And they're used to buying hardware, using it for 5 years. So they bought a bunch of extra, GPUs in the box, lots of storage space, SSDs that they didn't need for several years. And it cost a lot of money up front, but it was paid for and they could use it for a period of time. In the cloud, the whole point is to only pay for things that you need down to the minute that you need it. And you don't need it on the weekend, so you shut it down. All of those things require action, and it just requires a shift within your organization, a shift of mindset to make sure that you're not putting small fish in huge fish bowls or vice versa. In CloudHealth, there's some really simple tools that we utilize to look at our customer environments to say, hey, this environment, this instance by this user in this account in this region is severely underutilized, or maybe it's heavy on the memory and low on the CPU utilization. So let's change it to a memory intensive instance. And CloudHealth makes those recommendations, tells you how much you could save. It can break it down by cost centers, by individuals, by a project that you're working on, and it gives you those granular data points that you need very quickly. So once you've cleaned up your environment and once you've right-sized things, what's the next step? Well, I like to think about commitments, reservations, like reserved instances in the cloud, a lot like skydiving. You don't just go and jump out of a plane, and they won't let you do it by yourself. You need training, you need a certification, and you need practice maybe in a simulator before you actually do it for real. And so we are the tandem jumper that goes with you. We explain everything that you need to know about commitments because there's a lot to learn in this complicated environment. There are different types of reservations across the different clouds, and they all have their own constraints and criteria. Whether you're committing for 1 year, 3 years, if you're doing upfront capital at all, how are you going to amortize that? How is finance going to break down the bill? Who gets the bulk of that? What do we do with the shared costs? Are you restricted to a region, an operating system, a database type, etc.? It's just so much overhead to manage reserved instances in the cloud. And then, oh, hey, AWS came out with savings plans. What are those? That's all stuff that we can get great info on in CloudHealth. It's something that we educate our customers on so that they're aware of the new features or the new types of savings opportunities. And CloudHealth makes it really easy for yourself to go in and present it to your executive team or your finance team who are going to make the decision ultimately. This is something that we utilize to extend into our white glove service here. We utilize CloudHealth to primarily focus on customers who are low on bandwidth. They don't have, the manpower in-house who understand all of the ins and outs of the cloud and optimizing it and whatnot. They need someone to guide them, maybe a FinOps team, if you will. We're currently managing about 60 companies with over $2 million in monthly revenue across the major clouds, AWS, Azure, and GCP. And with our white glove service, we offer advice. We're the support system. We're your GPS, really. We're here to help. And we're guiding you in the direction that meets your goals as a business, constantly driving down your bill, and we're never costing more than the service. And if you're interested in learning more or working with us, please visit our website and fill out the form to connect with us. But with that, thank you very much for listening, and thanks to Angelbeat for having us.
Yeah, and let me add my thank you to all of you. The concepts here, you don't need a service to do this, but some companies are just so underwater with the time that we fill in the gaps. It's our job to know this. So like I said, the concepts are the same. It can be done in-house. It can be done with a service. It can be done with a great tool like CloudHealth. Whatever works for you, but it's just important. We think the cloud is fantastic, and me being an infrastructure all the way back to the mainframe, we think the cloud is truly revolutionary. But if you don't use it correctly, your senior management may get a little upset because of the costs. The costs are manageable. You just have to do it right. So with that, Parker and I want to thank you for having us today, and thank Ron and CloudHealth for allowing us to present.